Ladies and gentlemen, together we begin our roundtable. The format of our discussion will be maybe unusual for someone. Reanimation package of reforms. It was prepared, they prepared the letter to the National Bank, to Valeriya Hontaryeva. And the questions in that letter, we'll discuss them. And those letters you can get at the front desk. That is open information, and questions that the reforms of the banking sector prepared for that letter. Those issues are the most important, and those steps are necessary to save the banking system. We don't speak about the issue of war, escalation of Crimea, and the situation in the east. And bankers and the National Bank, we cannot influence on that now. We raise only issues that we can deal with, and issues which are a pain for many years, and they require to be solved for the banking system not to fail, and for the system to be efficient. Our four main issues, we will have a discussion around. The format is, raise the issue. Every participant on the roundtable will say something, and then we will summarize how possible to solve that problem. That's for every issue. After we cover all the issues, everybody will have a chance to say something, and we will come to a common position. And then after the discussion, you can ask questions to the participants of the roundtable. The first issue is about subtle and transparent exchange rate policy. The issue is quite painful. We know that there are different assessments, rates of the rate, and experts say anything they want. And the National Bank and Ministry of Economy, they calculate their own rate, a realistic rate. And I ask our expert, Ruslan Bondarenko, to answer, an independent expert from RPR, to answer that, to deal with that issue. I would like to tell you from the very beginning. We'll discuss. Why, and we will not discuss the issue why we have such a rate and why we have the devaluation, because our issue is the transparency and how public setting this rate. That's a transparent setting of this rate. And that's the problem, the issue I would like to discuss. That means to define, to decide who is responsible for this calculation and what is the real efficient rate, exchange rate. And National Bank and BU is working on that issue, and there is information on the website, and they put it on every month, and about this exchange rate. I believe in our group came to the conclusion that that is a macroeconomic issues which should include many factors which which do not depend on NBU. That's it. That's the first answer. Will we discuss it? No, let's discuss the problem with this first issue, and then we'll touch the rest of them. Second point. We're trying to define criteria, clear criteria, with intervention to interbank, coming to when NBU should do that and when they should not. We have such a position that it does make sense to hold the fluctuations of the rate, and this flexible rate setting with the resources we have in gold reserves. There are a lot of ways, administrative and other ways, not to limit these fluctuations. And we believe that that depends not on NBU, but on that situation on the market. Again, this depends on such factors like payment balance and emotions related to the war. Third point. We believe that NBU should stop the practice of blaming banks in manipulation with the rate. It looks strange, but as far as we know from experience, the rate is built on the agreements, and there's a need which is in export or import is they decide, and these rates. So it's the rate comes the change rate comes from interbank, and the NBU cannot regulate that and cannot keep a track of it, cannot follow it. There are some opportunities for that, but every contract and its specifics, you cannot get into details in principle. Whether we will limit a critical import or something else before critical import, or we do some other introduce some other limitations. But to name it as a manipulation, when all of us we move to free rate setting, that doesn't make sense at all. And fourth point. We suggest to improve the system of reflection of the trend in real time, online. Now this happens discreetly within half an hour and covered only a number of deals and quantity of deals. It should be online, and we should see demands and proposals. And technical, it's not a problem to change a rate or to keep an eye on that just on the website of NBU. That's it. Now, Valeriya, the question for you: how possible? What do you think about these 4 points? First of all, I have not expected that. I thought we have a round table, but we have. I have never seen so many press representatives. I'm ready to answer one by one. First of all, calculating the exchange rate. When we can calculate it, anyone who can do that in the country. Please calculate, all of you. NBU will continue to do that on its own, and it will be very interesting when because international methods will use the same method when we calculate such a rate. That's why this is exclusively a calculated number value. When I spoke to the parliament last week, they had a closed meeting. I arrived, but there was though I planned, but they didn't. I didn't make a statement. The previous time I told that the calculating value of the rate on that moment, that was more than a month ago. It was 11.50, 11.90. And I thought with 11.70 our payment balance was balanced, and how we can get calculating value. Calculate value has nothing to do with what happens on the market, and that is the value of how a payment balance will behave under certain conditions, circumstances, and forecast. And there are three kinds of forecasting that rate. One thing I can tell you that all values we calculate when we have a balanced economy, and we, as we're told, that we will not speak about the war. I think we will speak about the war because we have not only our economy is not balanced, and as the doctors say, we have a patient with an open wound from which is bleeding. That's our patient. We should balance it, and then we start. Then we can start to calculate the value rate. because it comes out how you trade with your main partners and how the currency behaves on that moment and how your trade balance and proportion it looks and what kind of inflations, what inflation they have in those countries. That is that value, calculated value. And not only BU should stop calculating, but also all Ukraine community should calculate their own value. And then professionals could come together and calculate which method is better. And then they should come to a consensus. So what value we should have, what number we should have. And criteria is with intervention on interbank. At present, we have such a small, not balanced market, and average level from 200 to 300 million a day. For a country with 45 million people, I would say it's just not nice. And I can tell you that the volume of trade before we pension fund started to buy currency, it was about from 1 billion 200 to 1 billion and 2. So that was a speculation component, and that was a component which I gave to the market. Some room for maneuvers. And now the market is with our importers and exporters alone. And if the market 3 million, and tomorrow it will be 200 million. This difference of 100 million turns our market into an unbalanced state, because there is 1/3 of our market. Because on that day there could be such distortions that you observe by yourselves. I can tell you that on that day, when I spoke in the parliament and when all the country was in a shock on that moment, because it was 1360. The rate was 1360 on that day. In the end of the day, operation, I looked at how many deals were on that. Those with that rate. There was only one deal for $50,000, and we had a panic, and population they were taking the deposits, and the panic was growing, and that gave me complete understanding that the functioning of technical function of our market doesn't meet any idea about a flexible rate we are going to build. Now we move to flexibility of the rate and to manipulations. I believe that if to calculate, to believe that the meeting with bankers, and we had three meetings, and tomorrow we'll have one more, so a certain level of a balance rate, which we see at present, and we see where the market must be. If to call that manipulation and criticism of National Bank, I don't believe it, because all bank community, and there are bankers here, and they can confirm what we discussed. We are trying to find that point which can meet during this wartime, which can meet, stabilize the system in the banking situation in the banking system, because in our country, attitude to currency is like to a sacred cow in India. So in this sense of any movement which is, as I told you, which is not explained, which is explained but only by panic, which is self-develops like a spiral. I don't remember that we criticized anyone for manipulation recently. The question of administrative limitations, you are correct here, because NBU introduced administrative limitations, and it started to check examine contracts and told that now the sale will introduce the 100% sale. We started to check examine contracts on T1 and T+2 purchase. Why did we do that? Because in fact, we understand that this is a spiral and panic. They imply the main negative factor that all our operations that I wouldn't call them speculative, but operations that prosecution should deal with, because those operations are just illegal. In a moment of such a panic, they become very active. That's why NBU took such a step. I can tell you that our exporters who can save 50% of their 50% of their currency, and they can hide 100% of currency. So we have such a notion like alleged operations, and we told that alleged operations that could be legal, but at the same time that can imply how to get away from administrative limitations for 50 or 100% of profit from currency. But an analysis showed that profit from currency went down, and because what happened to our industry in the east, in the Donbass, in that currency profit which we could expect a month ago, we don't have such a volume of currency. But in agriculture is because starts exporting actively. I believe that there will be no business interruptions, and we'll have cash flow from export. As to free rate, if someone would like to observe that online, you can buy Bloomberg or Reuters, and you can sit for 24 hours and observe. National NBU updates information every half an hour, and in the system is not reflected everywhere else every second. Official rate, all deals the banks did on interbank or inside of their banks, and that even which is not reflected in Bloomberg and Reuters, but only the symbol KSE, and they come into the system, and we ask for the banks. No, that all of them, they bring that they receive all clients demands in the morning by 10:30, and they can put into the system their main dealers. And banks can confirm that what they put before 1 o'clock, that will be in the calculation of official rate, because the market asked, and IMF saw that they would like to see the market in real time, because that's why all the deals before 1 o'clock, they will be reflected in the calculation of the average rate. Then every half an hour we update. You see our rate. Those are all the deals, not only on interbank, but banks also inside of the bank, because many big banks they are not sellers or buyers, and they close the deals inside. There is one rate, and then it they clearly reflects all deals in the country and all real rates for operations. And we have here business consultant, that is a broker, and they will explain which part of deals comes to brokers, and which information you can get from there. In fact, all will confirm that the most subjective information about volumes of deals and about rate that is in NBU and in the system will clear, because that includes all clients' deals in the country. So this is everything. If you wanted to get online or clear, we can automate it, and it will show everything in online. I don't believe that it will be beneficial for you, but we can make it. Thank you very much. And probably I approve. There was a very good practice of meetings with banks, which stabilized the rate. I cannot say that there was no administrative influence. We know that the director of currency department, he calls banks, and I started to do that too, because we moved Sherbako to monetary department, and Prihodko doesn't work. To be forced left, and so Nicolenko, I just had an interview with a new employer who will start working on the 11th, but believe me, usually I call heads of the boards, and we don't speak about the rate. We speak about the situation and what about our expectations.
Sergey Gennadьевich, how do you think? Do you agree with what we discuss on the issues today and what we can do in reality towards the exchange rate, and whether the National Bank has to show all the transactions in the online regime. The exchange rate is actually the ratio between demand and supply, and we cannot do much in correcting this ratio. The exporters should trust that the payment mechanism is right and come to the exchange rate of 11.5, for example. There is a recommendation to provide to the public information about what was agreed with the IMF, and that NBU should have more transparent mechanism. Today, National Bank of Ukraine is one of the major operators in the market, and the sum of some 10-20 million could considerably change the exchange rate, and under these circumstances, it is not so important to disclose all the information. The more important is to bring the exchange rate to some definite and predictable level, because this very predictability of the exchange rate, it remains the main factor of the public trust to the system. And while the actual factors influencing the exchange rate, they might influence the rate, as we explained. As for the conditions for conditions and interventions about punishment of banks, we should not provide to public and dismiss to public information about the bank shortcomings and errors, and we should simply punish the bank internally. When the interbank states that the exchange rate will be higher, then this is okay, you believe. Now, we should realize that there is a reality, and National Bank has to act within this reality, and some of our results is that exchange rate as of today has strengthened, and also the commercial banks are discontent. Maybe you will ask me why they are discontent. Yesterday, the bidding has shown with satisfied 100% of bidding applications, and also with satisfied 100% of transactions as of yesterday. This is actually one of the best results. Not always we were able to satisfy all the requests and for all the currency requests. If there are any banks dissatisfied, whose requests remained unsatisfied, then you should ask those banks why their currency limits were closed. You see the deputy chairman of the bank and the treasurer of the commercial bank in one person. And I have 20 years of experience in this very sector. I have come here not just to criticize somebody or to indicate any shortcomings in somebody's work. I came here to recommend something. Ms. Valeriya explained quite clearly that the issue which is of great importance for people, for the entire sector, etc. And here the cost is $50 million. Then this is incorrect approach. How much does $1 million cost? Actually, we have market players. If we have licensed market actors which have got licenses, which contribute much to support both Bloomberg ratings, etc. They have their own experts, like treasurers, like bank experts, financial experts, etc. They communicate with clients. They know how much currency do their clients need, etc. These people are able to understand what should be the exchange rate in the market because they work on everyday basis. These people actually shape the market. When recently we had a period, rather stable period, in the country's economy, we actually had no difference between the commercial exchange rate and the NBU exchange rate. In this case, the market is balanced and supply and demand in the market is balanced. There was no need for the national bank to intervene to the market every day. Why now it is not working this way? Valeriya Alexeyevna said correctly that since the second quarter of this year, more than $1 billion were traded in the market. Some of them were speculative trades, and they are trading on the frameworks of the risks which they traded. And currently, the amounts of the interbank market have gone down, and now we intervene to the market when there is only the need for clients to trade. But there are some banks which have the limits of open currency position, and they understand that having sold today some amount of dollars, I will be able to purchase necessary amount of currency in the future when my client will sell this currency. Such banks can predict such things. Now these banks are cut off this market. Today we have to pay for each currency operation 0.5%. That is, if today you buy currency, you have this 0.5%, then you add 0.5% and sell it to the other client. Then this other client sells to the next client with this additional 0.5% of tax coming. Look at the international exchange rate trade. In those markets, the difference is in the fourth figure after dot, and while in Ukrainian market there is a huge difference of 50 kopecks between buy and sell. in order to prevent the situation in the future, we should bring back to the market those banks. You should cancel 0.5% of for currency purchase. You may impose tax on bank transactions. In the past, we had similar taxes. Let us have this tax of 1%, and which will be paid by the final buyer who buys currency to pay for international contract. When customers buy a currency, they will pay 1%. But when banks sell currency and trade currency between themselves, they add this 0.5% each time of reselling currency. Also, we do not have the banks which could be matchmakers. MBU as of today has to deal with each bank, each commercial bank individually. Out of 170 banks existing in our country, there are around 50 banks working on the currency market every day. All the rest of banks, when they need currency, they simply go to the national bank. Thus, we recommend that national bank should look at the opportunity to have market maker banks in the market who will work with smaller banks. I would suggest to change the internal procedure of the national bank. I would argue with Ruslan on the clear criteria of currency interventions. There should not be clear criteria for interventions. Intervention could be efficient only when it is applied unexpectedly. Just recollect the strengthening of Japanese yen. And the unpredictability of a period of intervention can resolve the problem. There should be an internal document for the National Bank of Ukraine, which would allow NBU to act quickly. As of today, the market is operative from 12 till 3 p.m. and by this time the NBU takes all the requests and then decides how much currency I will get. Actually, usually banks request much more currency than they need in order to get as much as they need. In course of the previous review of the budget, we submitted to the Ministry of Finance a request to liberate us from the payment of pensions to people. And pension fund do not contribute from this procedure. And what is the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers? They they continue saying that we should find somebody who would substitute I believe that Vladislav's procedure that there should be importers who will pay. They will pay any more. Having paid having paid taxes for currency operations, bank imposed this tax on customers anyway. And about importers, what we heard from Vladyslav, this is the thing which we have been reporting, we have been discussing for 2 weeks, and about market makers. Just recently, the committee of experts has arrived. This group is chaired by Mr. Georgiev. Also, I have invited technical assistance group who will advise us how we should make it unexpected interventions, especially market makers will not know about these interventions because they will keep on very low quotas with very narrow spread. What can we expect? When we can expect such interventions? You should understand that NBU is a bureaucratic organization, but in the best sense of this word, that is, the procedure should be very clear. And in this context, today's bidding auction, which we had recently, also, we have the Dutch type of bidding, we have the American type of bidding, we have our traditional interventions. When you make suggestions that NBU could go to the market, the NBU will not go to the market, and I can assure you, because with that amount of several millions that NAK Naftogaz do not have considerable accounts. I would like to appeal to you and to encourage you to be responsible and do not make any suggestions and guessing about NAK Naftogaz going to the exchange market. As soon as we agree all the details with the IMF group and technical assistance group, we will come to the interventions. Now, Sergey Yaremenko. I would like to say that having not responded to the major issue, the entire discussion could not be considered as finished. Having not answered to the question whether we have a fluctuating exchange rate or we have a fixed or rigid exchange rate. Now we are discussing not this aspect. If I won't speak on the exchange rate, this won't be right. Under current conditions, both opponents, they are right. But fluctuating exchange rate requires one mechanisms and tools. And Ms. Valeriya, if you say that, if you say we have fluctuating exchange rate, and nobody can blame you, but when we say that it is fluctuating, but we try to make it fixed and try to explain that the measures and tools which we apply are aimed at fixing it. So we should state that we cannot step back from the fact that exchange rate is a pricing element and that it governs and drives not inflation, but it drives the economy and the population. That is actually people and economy forces us to make it fixed. Actually, the scale of the problem has reached the scale that we need to apply the extreme tools and measures. We cannot make fluctuating exchange rate in the framework of the decree which you discussed. That actually absolutely free market actors, they operate not with their money, but they operate with the money of the client. That is, you operate with the money of those who nevertheless have to exchange that money. You are not actors. Actually, there is only one actor in the currency market. This is NBU. That's why this is not a market. And it can support the exchange rate only when it makes intervention. That is the only thing which can bring life into our banking sector. If in the pseudo market there is only one actor, which is NBU, and it is responsible for the exchange rate, then in this case, it had the right to establish the official exchange rate as of each day, and the banks have to buy currency within the corridor of this exchange rate plus commission. And in this case, the speculations around the exchange rate will be stopped automatically. I have more recommendations, more radical recommendations. Please do not call this the market. Let us give the floor to Mr. Igor Shumylo. I need to respond right now. We have a real fluctuating exchange rate. We do not have a fixed exchange rate. Probably you saw many times that National Bank made interventions. I remember our first interventions at 12:45 for selling, and in a few days later we have witnessed better exchange rate. But speaking about the fluctuating exchange rate, we do not mean the drop in exchange rate at the negligible amounts. The exchange rate is not connected to the panic in the exchange market. There will be a lot of attacks on our position. Mr. Nalivaychenko mentioned 200 FSB agents whose main objective is to organize market and to create an attack on our exchange rate. Our major objective is to calm down that panic and to support reserves. And reserves in our country is formed to prevent the situation. That's why please do not mix freely formed exchange rate. And with this, I agree with Mr. Yaremenko. We do not speak about free formation of capital. Under conditions of crisis, these are administrative limitations, and 50% of obligatory currency sells, 100% of obligatory currency sells. Speaking about decree of 1993, to speak about it in 2014, this is a no ridiculous thing. Actually, the currency does not, and the currency which you would like to hide, you simply do not bring it to the country. You direct it directly to the Swiss banks, and unless we do not have the law on transfer pricing, the currency revenues will not come here. Also, the revenues of expats, they are coming here and are very strictly followed by the National Bank. I try to formulate correctly the illegal financial transaction. Now we have one of the banks who is now suing the NBU, which allowed to turn into cash 50 billion hryvnia and withdraw $4 million. That is the National Bank actually quite often substituted and overlapped the functions of the tax authorities and some other government bodies. But it is extremely early to speak about the freely convertible hryvnia. We today are speaking about a flexible exchange rate. It will be tied up to the US dollars or the euros.
Igor Shumylo, you have led economic department of National Bank. What do you think about course setting and how it's happening this time? I considered I should have more time, and we should say in what conditions the new leadership works. There are many recommendations from other countries, from those who have stolen the currency, have destroyed the currency reserve, and who, most dangerous, have destroyed, destroyed a desire to work and give recommendations to the leadership in very good professionals of young and not so young age. But my key question, and I'm glad to raise it, and I work with reanimation reform package, my vision of issues that are discussed today. I support the opinion of Sergiy because I share his opinion, although we quarrel a lot. Two people came with blameless reputation, the chief of National Bank, first deputy, and on the other hand, I don't see that there is renewed trust to National Bank, renewed trust to banking system as a whole, and to policy of National Bank. I spoke to an expert, and he said, I could quote him, Alexander Voityshyn. It appears that National Bank is forced to discuss this question, and why I agree with Sergiy. They say stabilize currency exchange rate or situation at currency market. We cannot say that if we are moving towards inflation targeting, although not at the same time. We are moving to more flexible and more directable exchange rate. Those people who are responsible for monetary policy, they cannot report that we have gone to flexible exchange, and all the transition in February was that they regulated by hand the currency market by giving loans to some at exchange of 7, to others at the rate of 10. And that continued with previous chief of National Bank. Now the situation is much more difficult because banks have huge amounts of money at different refinancing rates, and I am against just partial transparency, because we talk about transparency, of course, fine, but let's talk about transparency of refinancing, transparency of bank assets. My position is there is lack of trust, and Ms. Hontaryeva said there is distortion. Well, there are many distortions. Mr. Lisovenko is missing here. I respect him very much, but Ministry of Finance and we have in Kiev School of Economy we had internal discussion where maximum we see that there is distortion from Ministry of Finance, that then they give unmarketable price for international securities, and the resource that National Bank gives not to economy, it gives to support the government and other issues. So we need to look at connections of credit policy, refinancing, freshening up and revitalization of banking system and other issues. Because just lowering the rates, stimulating renewal, this can come only after the primary things are done. And now my key question: why people who have spent so many years to show that they want to regulate everything by hand? Well, let's remember how the rate was raised. There are non-market distortions of deposit rates, refinancing rate. You rejoice that you have had an auction, but the issue is work either here or there, because you're creating different platforms that allow to people who are responsible for monetary policy. 2 are missing, but 1 remains, and they continue to do the old stuff, because in my experience, 10 years experience of working with National Bank, people were fighting the idea of monetary policy to follow rules, procedures, and principles. They wanted to ensure control by hand, and now they want to ensure this kind of management as well. It's hard speaking to bankers today, like Franco said. Everything to friends and law to the enemies. There are friendly banks and things are done, but then the question is, who does regulation of banking system? And can you speak for everyone that they don't have anything that would connect them to specific, their business to specific people? That's my key question. Now about advice. I agree with Sergiy. Look at distortions. Chief of National Bank says this year inflation would be less than 20. Next year it would be 10. And the rate today is already positive 12.5. But then why deposits are 20 or more percent? Because population does not trust. They don't believe. There are different numbers at foreign countries. See, not everything depends on National Bank. National default trust to sovereign policy depends on a Ministry of Finance, but still, we'd say transparency. You need to give this openness. in order to calculate a real exchange rate, you have tens of people very qualified, because the issue is not just to calculate the rate, but to show its influence on import, on energy import. That's why the funds are paid, but unfortunately we don't have this information. And when we talk about transparency, it's not what is given to what bank, but when we go back to currency market, when and how things are done. Because if there is a desire to reinforce hryvnia, National Bank would come and buy, and everybody would understand that National Bank does not allow strengthening national currency. These recommendations have been given, and we need to listen to them. Transparency, we need to listen to them. But just to say that inflation would be 10, what would be the essence of monetary policy? Tell me, you journalists, when you read the main foundations of monetary policy, and when you say, I have read everything and I understand, what was the point of monetary policy? This is a great work to be done, but you need to say, as a head of National Bank, this is a goal that I have, and for this purpose I will study pure international reserves, and this is a decision for this year and for the next. That's why I'm saying let's not compare balance exchange rate and the realistic exchange rate. And now hryvnia is undervalued significantly, but if all these rates, monetary policies would become the foundation, and that would be transparent and open, and there would be no distortions like this, then situation at currency market would be different. And the last thing I began with, bankers today, they say, you know what difficulties happen with this devaluation and others. We cannot go to weaken the course. We cannot allow them non-return of credits. All banking systems, except for maybe Ukraine, central banks have returned the loans that they have given, instead of fighting for higher capitalization and forcing the owners of banks and business to bring currency in and to sell it and create a different situation by lobbying this banking system. I would say in the wrong understanding, this makes it more difficult to fulfill the main function that you have to develop monetary policy. Igor Anatolyevich, I'm surprised that you, knowing me for so many years, you cannot. You're talking about special relations with certain banks. But when you talk about my team, you talk about me. Fish is rotten from the head. It's easy to fight corruption. On the top level, it's not there. The lower level clearly understands it and will not build a pyramid. The only things that could happen, it could be guerrilla attacks that could be fought off, and all bankers in our circle know if at some low level territorial management this appears, the first thing they will do, they will report it to the chief of the board, the president of the board. What you're saying could happen if we live in peaceful time, but now our inflation targeting, even International Currency Fund that agreed to implement it with us over 12 months, they said, oh, for the time of war, we would postpone it for 18 months. Let's talk about this again 18 months later. But talking about high-class specialists, a team that you're talking about, I would doubt the high quality of those specialists. This evening, in order for International Monetary Fund to get memo about the fact that factories of Cox chemistry have stopped. Metinvest company in Mariupol produces half their production because they cannot, unfortunately, bring coaxing coal because infrastructure is destroyed. And I was there to sit with them and to write those applications in English. Those implications for our payment balance, I was putting it together because not one high-quality specialist from National Bank, without receiving statistics from Statistics Bureau, would not report about the balance, while I have to foresee it. And when Ministry of Finance said to give them a forecast, I told that National Bank will not give forecasts to the government. We need to build our own forecasting, because our inflation targeting will be built on our macroeconomic forecast that we'll make inside. So today, I believe that the team of National Bank is not ready yet to produce high-quality analysis and to give yet will work to strengthen the team, and very soon you will see if I saw if I can talk not only about the citizens of Ukraine but others, then you might see some high level specialists. Unfortunately, we are limited by passports of Ukrainian citizens, so the foreigners only can serve as consultants. So the question is not in the fact that foreigners will help us, as Ostap Bender used to say. All the forecasts that we have taken for the next year for the general calculation you said about monetary policy of National Bank and credit and money policy, these 40 pages that Vladyslav mentioned. Read this text. This is a text where we introduce data by formula of calculation to follow the program of International Monetary Foundation. Don't expect something super new. We are working together with International Monetary Fund, following their program, to develop minimal reserve that we must support, and monetary base that we have right to make, and pure gross assets. While we are in the program, we can all use those tools that formally is reflected in the policy that would be approved by the Board of National Bank in the coming days. But in the future, as we go to monetary targeting, will be based on our own macro forecast that I believe by that time we'll be able to do professionally. Thank you. We have discussed much this issue, and we still have half an hour. So we have been discussing all these subpoints in detail. We have heard all the answers to what things are done and what are not done, and what still has to be done. But the second question is still open. Unfortunately, we will not have questions. You believe that today's rate that exists, 12.5, is the one that would ensure trust to monetary policy, and is one that would allow, in this case, to overcome inflation and renew it to a level of 10% next year? Do you believe that there should be a spread between the 5% point that allows to have one tender sometimes for 13%, in the other case it would be 15, or even different number? Why would you not follow the recommendation of central bank? Why are you not going to make monetary policy more harsh, to change attitude to hryvnia and to its development at the currency market? This is a question that reminds me. Under National Bank, I have two meetings normally. One one meeting: why have you introduced temporary administration, or why are you not creating temporary administration? And one day you would have why don't you return deficits, and why you don't restructure currency loans? I'm proud to tell you that bankers will approve it for the first time. This estimation rate reflects market because from overnight to 90 days we have done all the curve where we have the deposit certificates to attract money, talking about placing money from a week to 90 days. The situation is following. When we announce unlimited amount of hryvnia, and we set the rate, tender has happened a month ago. We have given a rate at 14.25, and people have received refinancing with collateral of state security papers. I would like to tell you that since 19th July, that no refinancing was given to state securities, that a day and night anyone can come and receive money. It doesn't say, I'm not saying that there will be no other loans. National Bank is a final line credit if stabilization credit is necessary for the bank or for a flow of liquidity. This would happen, but until now, automatic tenders, we made it in automatic rollover when you can take automatically funds under a rollover automatically without addressing anyone. This is safe liquidity instrument. When we see there is much liquidity in the market, then we offer tender for a limited amount of money, and we expect certain rates from banks. And last tender like this has happened where we announced 3 billion at the market, while market decided to take 1.6 billion, and the rate was 17.26. So this is the most demanded money for recent times. Inflation this year expected by National Bank at a level of 19 or 17%, but as we are in the program of National International Monetary Fund, we are looking for 19% rate. Next year we envision a 10% targeting of inflation is looking forward to expect what you want to see. So for half a year there will be existing inflation. We already had 12.6 by remaining year. It was plus 7%, 19% totally, and 5 for next year, 12.5. Simple mathematics that does not require anything specific. As inflation grows, International Monetary Fund recommends to increase this bank rate. Why do we have such high rates on deposits? Overnight is just a rate that you don't need to try to attract into banks. Active overnight is most expensive. It's exclusively market solution. Why it should not be done? But we began to develop curve of profitability of Ministry of Finance up to 3 years, and we have a real market deals. A 3-year paper what was called 19%, 2-year 17%, and a year paper 16%. I think we have market curve of profitability. I would disagree, but what is more, 5, 7, 10 years, and this does not have to do anything with the market. This is Ukrainian QE. This is Ukrainian financing, and everybody understands what's happening. So for this paper, I would not focus your attention, although it would be interesting at some point, but all papers up to 3 years, it would be market issue. About interest rate, half a minute. There was a statement that we have high deposits rate. Component of interest rate includes inflation includes credit risk and liquidity risk. Today, banks do not have resource that they would consider urgent at their balance. If as bank, we don't do this, but if a bank has interactive deposit for a year, and they said that the depositee would take money back if they would buy obligation certificates or loans, and nobody would demand the money back. Then this component of risk of liquidity would be going down to zero. 170 banks in the country. Component of credit loan, the bank with good rating has lower rate, and they bring more money to the bank because they trust them more. Thank you. Now Neshodovsky, the problem of refinancing of a bank. We spoke about refinancing. This is very big problem. Second big problem. We know that the previous leadership had big problem with that and big accusation, and because of this, trust to the banking system has decreased, because for many times press has announced allocating certain financing, and there was lack of transparency what bank Y would receive and what percentage they need to pay back. In order to overcome this, for this not to happen, we offer to make an open process here. It's important that every day at the site of National Bank there will be reflection of information on refinancing. For what purpose does bank receive refinancing? And it's important to say that population could panic. We disagree. There is bigger panic if in press people publish information that some banks receive refinancing for some certain reasons. It gives more distrust to the system in the whole or bank specifically if we openly say what refinancing, for what purpose, what is collateral by this bank to receive this refinancing. It was good to hear that during your cadence you have given refinancing only for collateral of state securities. It shows certain stability of the banking system, but just recently there came information about continued return of credit to specific banks and refinancing. All banks, not specific banks, but all banks. It causes for different interpretations why this has happened, and if this information was open, how more can we open it? All banks have continued refinancing. What amount? Amount that was given for refinancing through Decree 91 for stabilization, because Donetsk, Lugansk, and Crimea happened to everyone. For 3 months, it will continue to everyone. I don't know how more we can write for you to understand that everyone has received continuance. The banks who value their reputation in their annual reports and the sites they show their balance. Don't be lazy. Go to the website. Look at the top 20, top 40 banks, and you will see in the balance that they have received refinancing from National Bank. More so, we agree. I'm saying the article of law 60 forbids to do National Bank is to explain, to show all the information. We have refinancing either for state securities, that's weekly tenders, but about the rate, everybody needs to understand that you don't know. This is 90-day risk. In 90 days, the rate might be different, and this is liquidity is not there, and banks need to clearly understand this would stimulate them to buy state securities because they will always receive liquidity for state security, but risk of changing the interest rate remains with the bank. If we raise the rate, they will buy. They will get money more expensively, or if we low, they will get it cheaper. This is called a stabilization loan. A stabilization loan is given to up to 2 years, and the rate is 1.5 a discount rate acting at that time. So when it was given, then it's a 1.5 rate of that, and it remains for 2 years. We are ready to disclose everything that's possible. Try to change if banks support, then we as regulator, we are open to show all the information. We think it's important for a bank to be refinanced, and bank is in the state that to continue, because national bank can give liquidity only, not capital. So that means the bank has capital and it stays in good condition. Thank you. Very briefly, from a reanimation package of reforms, we will initiate these changes in legislation and will talk to banks about possibility why this openness is necessary, because this openness will increase trust to banks, and all these insinuations that exist and about some loans issued on some unclear conditions, this will disappear. It will not happen again.
Kubiv is blamed that I spoke to the prosecution, and there is no case against Kubiv. Nobody took money from anywhere. There is just an insinuation. On the market, it's worse than there are so many people on this market who, for cut-offs, suggest that they offer support from NBU. There are many of them on the market, but when you speak to the bankers, they say we don't need refinancing, and they can get that refinancing on their own. There's a lot of speculation in the market. The question is, when we raised this issue 2 months ago, he told that banks will be against that to publish information who received for which what was the rate, and so 3 factors of all the banks. And Kostyuk says the banks would be against, because everybody will see that who receives that, and then all the banks will close limits. And when they see that the banks they read balance monthly, and monthly banks see each other quite well. There is no problem with that. You tell me, tender. Anybody should inform. Look at who has a VGZ that will receive refinancing automatically if they want. Any bank. So the issue of openness, no. I'm the 91st, and I can tell you now it's very easy. Look at back, but we had bank run. We had when our deposits were run away from the bank system in Crimea. We had -88 in Donetsk, Luhansk, -35, and 25 -25. So 1 billion hryvnia was taken from the bank system. If at that moment that was refinancing for Regulation 91, which is, I would call it like extinguishing fire. I cannot say that I would criticize that. There is the question 2 pledges, and we are trying to set order, but there is trying an effort to extinguish fire. That's how I would call it. A key issue, and my position was misinterpreted. I told that we need all the monetary system should become stricter, and now the rate of 12.5 is not the one which stops the situation on the currency market, and the rates from central banks. It doesn't matter how they override or others. They must be higher and lower those rates on the market. The problem for Ukraine is that look, 3 months. So rates. So the central bank with its rates, they should direct them to reduction if there is a need, or up. That's what I told you. we take 11 for the week and 13 and nobody days. So we give for 13 for refinance. And why are you not taken? So we're clear. I am a person from the market, and I will argue with the markets because we are the first who built the market up to 90 days, and now we built and we helped to the curve up to 3 years, and we helped that to the Ministry of Finances. And you say that why rates are high in banks? Because when we clean the bank system, and I am just waiting for this question. When there is no bank which is indifferent about the rate because they're not going to give up anything, that come to Raiffeisen our bank and look at the rate. It will be very similar to the rate of refinances you see in the National Bank, and the biggest inflow of deposits in Ощадbank, Raiffeisenbank, Aval. We'll reduce the number of these kinds of refinancing, and we should have consistency. The key issue is that rate. We believe that's at 12.5. Okay, then you should give explanations, and your professional should give broad explanations. And who would show that? Look, this monetary policy and such interest rate, they will guarantee 20% of inflation this year and 10% during the war. Will not be able to do that. Unfortunately, I told you, and I cannot guarantee inflation targeting and for implementation for the next. We moved it away with international IMF for 18 months. So we live in the mode of IMF programs. It's a program. So national NBU agrees with the proposals, with the package of reforms, and to open information, and as to amendments to legislation. I would like to underline the most important is to have a transparent mechanism, a standard mechanism. We see that the last changes, amendments in the acts of the NBU, they had an approach to all banks. There was no separate regulation, Ukrgazbank or some others. There was a separate decision on refinance, and there are standard conditions. As you discussed here, 50%, it means everybody. If they postpone, it's for all. This transparency, and that reduces some other steps. What kind of corruption will there be? If all are under the same conditions, to refinance, and there is a scheme for state bonds, and when the pressure on the currency market will be less, and some other instruments will be used. Maybe there will be a stock market, there will be some other bonds and other products. It's important that to have a procedure to get refinance. You get it in 15 minutes, and then you do your job, and then the bank will not want to take from the profit. Let me take a fee of 100 million. For the case that somebody doesn't give that to me tomorrow? There should be a clear tool, and one person is sitting on dealing and dealing with operations, and the other one is sitting on the finance. Nobody wants to get information which bank, why was refinanced. It's just a standard procedure. It doesn't matter who gets refinanced, and will come. It doesn't matter because it's about all. And the conditions are the same for all. This is the situation with SVGZ. It's clear, but when we speak about a loan and loans, that's where we have a question when a bank says no. And because many banks, they don't have what they could or they got. The main task is to develop tools, general tools for all. If you know if there are some other assets like bonds and or securities that covers all the banks with those assets, with the regulation, that's we mentioned it's an individual. During my term, no, it was not issued. It doesn't mean that it will not happen. We are obliged to do it. The bank has promised we have to do that. The question, we as a national bank, we are ready to explain how we do that on the basis of what, and we perfected that regulation 327 because. National Bank wanted to have a pledge as real estate, and they gave all that real estate which they don't need, and we have a lot of it. So then we rewrite it, that regulation 327. We wanted to have quite a liquid pledges, more interesting. For example, like sort of facility and some currency profit, like banks love to take it from their clients. We look at that and we write it in our that regulation. We would like to play on the same position with banks and not liquid, unliquid property which was depreciated 3 times, refinancing. And refinancing is the component of refunding. If you look at this is the loss of liquidity, and when you come to the loss of credit, and you ask to replace it. And when I hear, for example, including from the public service, let's develop the program of financing for 3 years, and with the help of we will rebuild. No, let's do the proper things. Let's give the chance to through banks through changing the amendments in the civil code to use to bring deposits, and they will have liquid resources. If you take a deposit for 1 year, you have it. You don't need to refinance from the national bank. You will need it when Valeriya told them. Banks lost 50–80% of deposits because of the war. If a bank has in the contract that the deposit should come on the September 1st, the bank decides, can I issue it on the 1st of May or June, or if I cannot. If I cannot, I refuse. But a depositor, when they placed that deposit, because they had a high interest rate, they wanted to make more. They went to that risk consciously. It was in the past. Now we changed the civil code and the burden, the load on the national bank, because what is happening here, it will look like sanation loans. We have to save banks because they are losing liquidity. Refinance is just to support reserves for 2 or 3 weeks. There is a gap. You go and take it. As to opening and not opening, if you look at experience of 2008, a few banks at the beginning were afraid to take from Fed American banks to take refinancing and to open it, and it was like a stigma. If I go, I have a problem. That's it. In fact, before the crisis, there was quite a good practice of getting the finances to finance targeted programs for grain sector, and we could come back to that too. As to the third issue, you touched and to give a loan to. It's not the issue of a national bank. The issue of Ministry of Finances should develop the list of enterprises we have to improve for our economy stop falling. But so we should solve the issue of financial stability of banks. Once again, I would like to underline. Let's remember that the national bank is a regulator of a banking sector, and banks give loans to economy. And I agree completely that we have 2 kinds of what I told you of refinancing for liquid pledges, and this is what we give refinances for state bonds. That's a high liquidity instrument that any bank has it on its balance, and if it's necessary, they get money. That's why it is called 100% liquidity of that instrument and high liquidity instrument. The second kind, it is called sanation loan. When we consider a problem of every bank separate, and then from assignation goals for improvement that is related to its capitalization. It's a quite a different assignation loan, which it is not standard, and I agree that that's why banks oppose, and they don't want the market to see that, and we don't mind that. Here, there is an opinion that we have. We need deposits for certain term, and that it's impossible to cover them before that. They should know on which condition they give those deposits to banks. When they give those instruments to banks, the bank can count on that. And if they can note that they don't need to return it before a certain term. But they should work well. The clients should not be afraid that in a year, for example, they will not return because of some reason. They should be sure that they will get that deposit back 100%. As to stability, financial stability of banks, and we would like. We have there is a decision, and we should give more information about insiders, information about who is a real owner of banks, who are the biggest creditors, because the problem with the banking system is that very often banks exist exclusively to finance their own projects of the beneficiaries, someone who invested money in that. That's why that information should be completely open. In this case, opening this information, making it public, that will allow objectively assess the state of the banking system and a concrete bank. Banks should not be afraid to open that information. Why? Because that is about credibility to bank system, which we are discussing that here. If you want it to be trusted, become open. These are two main regulations. We would like to be rules or requirements would like to be implemented recently, very soon. A simple example. Everybody, Ukrgazbank bankruptcy, the other bank was had a status of a specialized 7 bank, and they collected deposits, and 70% of the loan portfolio they give loans to their clients. The National Bank, I asked this National Bank every year examined that bank. You don't. Did you see that mistakes? No. Yes. Why didn't you stop them? So the issue of opening owners and shareholders on the side of every bank and on the side of National Bank, the issue of the list of the biggest loan takers, they publish that. Why not? Why the National Bank doesn't do that? You can. That will reduce the probability for corruption and those cases which we had until now. I suggest bankers to express their opinion about this. First of all, I completely agree that it is not even discussed. Owners of banks must be known. It's the law. We are obliged according to IMF program. So it's not even discussed. We are working on that. As to at present, 15 banks they have passed asset quality review. We are working with all on the recapitalization. Who needs that? Not all, thank God. Not everybody needs that. And the next 20 banks, they will pass the test by the 20th, and it's a correct question about insiders, an issue of insiders. And I'm always interested in the reports of Big Four, big auditors, as to whom they see as insiders, and there is no big insiders who gives loans to itself. If you want to see it and identify it under the name of its company, his company. That's the question. Not always you can identify that. You can guess, but even auditors cannot give you precise information about that. Nevertheless, in the National Bank, we have a task. If it's for 23 years of the banking system of Ukraine says that you should do that gradually, because our task, the main task, for the capital to be filled with real money, not with unclear assets. Our task that some schemes that were used to fill capital, to get more accumulated capital, and you know quite well which Western banks with rating AA were used for that. And we are working on that. But you understand that our main task during the crisis to finish the capitalization of banks and to help them to live. That's why I believe that we'll handle that task. And we move in the correct direction.
Thank you. Yesterday, I think that in line with our IMF program, we have to do this by the end of the year. The mic is not off. As far as I remember, 40 banks represent 85% of the banking system, and I'm very much familiar with the situation in those banks, and the rest, 130 banks, I'm not sure how do they work. So we will know about the situation by the end of the year. Yesterday, I found that 18 banks have unknown final owners, and about 10 banks are not have unknown owners. And I know that within the National Bank, there was a recommendation to split the banks into 10 companies and to get registration from NBU. Even those 10 banks which have unknown owners, it is rather difficult to clarify with whom to discuss future recapitalization. And when the banks which have insufficient capitalization, they go to the fund, deposit insurance fund. About this deposit insurance fund, we have received $500 million from IMF. This is a targeted amount for the deposit insurance fund, and we believe that this will be sufficient. But 100 guarantee of this state for the deposits is with the Bank, while in the rest of banks there is only 200,000 insured deposits. The insured deposits are only for 200,000. The mic is not on, that's why we cannot translate. The mic is not on. Whether you can initiate legislation. Moreover, I do not like administrative measures, and those administrative measures related to limitations to withdraw currency or to withdraw cash from deposits. I do not like these measures, but we have to apply these measures because we do not have term deposit notion in the country. As soon as we have this term as term deposit, then this will be, if the there is the loan for 3 years that it should not be required to be paid in half a year. If you have put your deposit for a year, then you cannot withdraw this deposit next day. And this is the reason why National Bank has to do these measures. This is the civil code. Our development concept this sets it as one of the priorities, and we will submit it to the new convocation of the parliament. I think that now, on the eve of elections, this will be not the most popular measure. Probably we shall finish now. No contribution to the mic at all. No input to the mic. I cannot state that they are not complied with. Tomorrow we will have one more meeting with the bankers, and under the ceasefire conditions, and there are chances for peace. And I believe that very soon we will stop such meetings, because the major reason for them will go away. And as soon as the Donbass problem will be resolved, we will see our currency revenues coming back. What you mentioned, we stated as an acceptable level as of today. Today, if you look at the NBU website and look at the number of transactions and the exchange rate, you will see the figure 12.9 plus minus something. It was very important to reach a gentleman's agreement between the banks and the NBU. If the both sides trust each other, and when they come to some agreement and stick with it, then that's fine. I fully agree with Valeriya that as soon as the situation is stabilized, then nobody will need such meetings. And the last question. No input to the mic. Absolutely no input to the mic. Could you please explain who hinders passage of the law, and what is the outflow of currency from the country? The NBU, in my face and in face of my team, for the first time you see the NBU team consisting of technocrats. That's why it's not fair to ask me who do not vote for transfer pricing. We provide all our recommendations. We have no legislative initiative. We simply provide our recommendations to the National Bank. Probably early parliamentary elections were announced because of the impossibility to resolve some issues with the current membership of the parliament. The outflow of currency continues. What are the amounts? Do you mean how much currency we expect to find with the population? We have around $4 billion withdrawn by people. And what about those money which were outflown from the money? Mr. Klemenko probably knows. What are your estimates? Please do not search for simply illegal outflow. Let us look at a company acting in the telecommunications market. They can buy dividends 6 months later or buy dividends today. Each company naturally is stimulated to buy it today. So the importers wish to buy more today. So please do not see exclusively speculative capitals in these transactions. There's a panic and the outcomes of panic. But we warned all the banks who dealt with illegal transactions. What to do? What would you recommend ordinary people who made loans at the level 5.5? The banks subjected them to restructure that loans. Why they have been waiting and waiting till the further worsening of situation. Together with the bankers, we wrecked the draft law suggested by Knežević, which was passed by the parliament. At that time, the exchange rate was 11.7 when the NBU was buying currency for the reserves. Thus, you should clearly understand that Knežević draft law provided for the exchange, the market exchange rate, then the interest rate was the same for the currency credits and the hryvnia credits. This was the compromise reached between National Bank and major banks who are big creditors and who had much mortgage credits. So we reached the compromise. Unfortunately, the law has passed first reading and it has not passed the second reading. Now the major objective is to reach lower exchange rate. You cannot simply postpone the about postponement of the situation. Just look, all serious journalists describe the restructuring recommendations as to the suggested by the banks. It's not lie. If the banks reject to restructure your credit, there is a special hotline in the NBU which continues to accept claims from the clients. And why people do not use this opportunity? If there is a willingness of the client to find a compromise, the bank is always ready to look for a compromise because those credits are bad loans, and the banks are always ready to diminish them if those bad loans are overdue as of today, because after 2009 they were not given. Then today you have to resolve the situation. Now I'm allowed to go. I have to go to the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation.